Hey, welcome to another fun tutorial. Today we're going to be looking at making our own very cool dinosaur blobs. So the materials that I used to create this were some watercolour pencils. These are my Faber-Castell, but you can use any if you happen to have some lying around. They're just really fun and playful and give you a really nice vibe with your work. I also used some watercolour markers. These I actually brought during lockdown. They're really fun. They've got a really nice brush pen tip and they give you really vibrant colour, as you'll see. But obviously if you don't have any, don't worry. Onto watercolours, and I quite often use these little tubes of watercolour. It's a bit of a mix from Winsor & Newton to Daniel Smith and Daler Rowney. But if you don't have any, don't worry about it, just use whatever you happen to have. When you're using tube watercolours, you'll need a palette. I actually use just an old plate and it's brilliant. You can also use pan watercolours if that's what you have lying around. Those are just some Winsor & Newton and these are some Mission Gold. So they're a bit different, but if you don't have anything like this, don't worry, just use what you have. I'm just sharing what I tend to use for my little illustrations. This is possibly my favourite paintbrush. It's just little and it's a squirrel hair and it just holds a lot of water in, which is really useful. It's nice and springy and gives a nice point. I recommend using paper or a sketch bit with a slightly thicker paper. This is actually a moleskin watercolour paper. It's nice and thick, it's got a little bit of texture to it and it will just retain that watercolour nicely. If you want to add a bulldog clip to stop your pages from moving, and grab yourself a jar of water. It's best with two, as you can use one for clean and one for dirty. On to painting. So make a big blob, make a blob of watercolour, have fun, mix colours and just go for it. So I'm not planning too much, I'm just sort of being quite loose and fluid. I have a couple of ideas of where to go with marks, but for the main it's just have fun. To start with, I'm just using plain old watercolour. They're just my watercolour tubes that are from my plate. Here I'm adding in one of my watercolour markers. They just add a little vibrant pop of colour and kind of push me out of my own comfort zone, which I think is always a good thing to do. So you can see how vibrant and fluid they are, and they work just like a really strong inky watercolour. I absolutely loved using this green for dinosaurs. I thought it was such a classic, bright, vibrant colour. Here I added in some watercolour pencils too. I just wanted a sort of slightly mid-soft look, a kind of compromise between the markers and the watercolour. As I said before, don't worry if you don't have one of these or any of them, just work with whatever you happen to have. Even if you don't have watercolour, maybe just water down some craft paint and that can work really well too. Here you'll see I started playing around with the different medias in kind of a cheeky way, so I actually put the markers directly onto the watercolour pencil before wetting it, and that was really fun. I really enjoyed the different textures that gave. So now that looks a bit of a mess, let's grab some pens. I've got some micron pens and an assortment of kind of fine liners. Whatever you happen to have lying around will work fine, I'm sure. I just choose these because they've got a nice small nib at the top and they have different sizes, so it gives me a bit more control over my line. So let's start sketching. Grabbing one of my thicker pens, I started sketching out this little dino dude. My tip is to follow the edge of the blob and add in little features where you want to. So I started off with a head normally, that's my kind of place to start. Add in little tails and feet. I quite often like to add in the arms actually inside the watercolour. Obviously make sure that your watercolour is nice and dry before you start because you don't want a big puddle of mess. I recommend letting your imagination kind of run free and use the dots as a support to try and help you create really imaginative, creative little dino dudes. You can use this method for anything, it doesn't have to be dinosaurs, it's just dinosaurs are kind of my thing. But you can apply it to absolutely anything you wanted to. You could create some fun houses or some rockets or some monsters, whatever you think might be fun. And it doesn't matter your age either. I've seen children and adults enjoy this activity by the hundreds, honestly, it's really, really good fun. If you get a little bit stuck, one of my recommendations is to go over the spikes of a dinosaur. It can sometimes just be really useful to get your creativity started. By this point you can see the dinosaurs are really starting to come to life. They've got little spots and stripes and they're just really characterful and very fun, so just be free with it and just see what happens. I hope you've had fun watching this tutorial and I hope you give it a go. So keep following Independent Arts for more exciting tutorials and have fun and stay safe, stay creative.